Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei was reborn as Super Devil. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. A spiky brown-haired 5'6" young man stood in an empty room which he knew was filled with recording devices for the test that his guardian wanted to use to keep track. I can't believe that Ajuka-san thinks I might be a super devil, he thought to himself, patting down the thigh-length dark blue coat he was wearing over a turtleneck black jumper and black jeans, black boots on his feet. His emerald green eyes flickered over the long panel window that showed Ajuka Beelzebub, Surzex Lucifer and Graphia Lucifuge watching interested as the former staff worked away at consoles. We're ready to begin when you are, Kichi-kun. Ajuka spoke into a microphone attached to the desk, Kichirou nodding as he took a calming breath before stretching. Do you really think he could be a super devil? Surzex asked his friend and fellow Mao quietly, Ajuka shrugging as he replied. It's possible. Kichi-kun's control over ice is amazing, even with his freezing Archaeopteryx aiding him. That's why I asked Graphia to help teach him. I'm sure you've heard of his sacred gear evolving to act as an avian-based armory for him as well. I think that Kichirou can use ice at a colder temperature than most other ice magic users can. Surzex nodded as he remembered Graphia bring it up after one of her lessons with Kichirou. Freezing Archaeopteryx was normally an avatar-type sacred gear, with the prehistoric bird being about the size of a vulture. Kichirou's version could act as avatar or various weapons that all had appearances that linked back to the avatar form. Temperature starting to decrease, one of the staff spoke, drawing attention to Kichirou and the swirling icy mist that was starting to form around him. The same person called out numbers as ice started to spread out from around Kichirou's feet till it covered the whole room. -200°C and leveling out, the man stammered in shock. Ajuka focusing on Kichirou as he noticed the brunette's eyes scrunch up and hands clench as his icy blue aura flared into life around him, his breath coming out quicker. Looks like you were right, Ajuka. No devil has managed to even touch that temperature and he's doing fine in there, Surzex spoke amazed, Graphia watching with a critical eye the calculating look on her king's face before Ajuka spoke into the microphone. Kichi-kun, are you just using your demonic energy? Kichirou nodded, opening one blue glowing eye to look at the window as Ajuka shook his head ruefully as he spoke. Use the other parts then as well. Kichirou smiled as he nodded, Surzex and Graphia looking at Ajuka as the staff stammered out, -273°C? Absolute zero. I thought so. Ajuka spoke with a nod, glancing to his shocked friends as he moved to the mic. You can stop now, Kichi-kun, good job. You reached absolute zero, that's about -273°. Kichirou's eyes widened in shock as he relaxed and looked around in awe as the sheets of ice around the room and the nipping air that wasn't having any effect on him. Go ahead and bring the temperature back up, Kichi-kun. Ajuka spoke, Kichi nodding before the Mao turned to explain. Because Kichi-kun wasn't using his fallen angel side, he was subconsciously limiting his own power to some degree. Think of it more that while your, mine, or any full devil's reserves are completely made to channel demonic energy, Kichi, as a hybrid, has to channel both demonic and holy from his reserves, meaning he can't release full power without tapping into the areas a fallen angel could, even if he's not aiming to use the holy aspect. Looks like there's a new member to the club then, Surzex spoke amused before a calculating look forming on his face as Graphia turned her gaze to the window where Kichirou was finishing with getting rid of the ice before walking towards the lone door. A small smile forming on the silver-haired maid's face at hearing the hurried footsteps behind her heading in the same direction. So did you find out what I asked? Ajuka asked curiously, Graphia nodding to him before handing over a slim file as he nodded his thanks as Surzex asked. Is this about what Seraphal wanted you to meet her parents about? Ajuka's nod was the only response Surzex got, making the crimson-haired Mao look on thoughtful. The 5'3" young woman smiled as she walked towards Kichirou, her shoulder-length blonde hair held in a side ponytail by a blue ribbon on her right side while the rest framed her brown eyes. She wore a long-sleeved pinstriped white shirt with a black ribbon tied around the collar, a short wine-colored skirt, a charcoal gray waistcoat fitting her body like a second skin, a shoulder cape in the same color and black knee-high boots. That was great, Kichirou. She spoke with a bright smile, Kichirou smiling back as he replied. Thanks, Lucy-chan. Did they say anything else? Not really. They aren't sure if your super devil ability is ice-based or temperature-based at the moment, Lucy replied. Kichirou nodding as he brushed off snow and ice from his clothes before using magic to change them into the Kuoh Academy male uniform, minus the ribbon. Well, we best head back home and get the others before we head back to Kuoh. It's been a rather long week, Kichirou spoke with a sigh, Lucy nodding at the thought as she replied. I know what you mean. The mission was longer than any of us could expect, and I can see Lena Lee wanting to get away from Kamui-san as well by now. Yeah, I can see that as well. Well, let's find out if we have something else to do today. I'd rather not cause any more delays, Kichirou spoke with a smile as they started to walk towards where Ajuka and Surzex was standing. Ajuka-san, Surzex-sama, Grafia-sensei? Is there anything else you need me to do today? Kichirou called, the three devils turning to smile as Ajuka shook his head and replied. No, Kichi-kun. You can head back to Kuoh today. I need to look over the data we collected, although I'm sure Lucy-chan has already told you about being a super devil. Lucy blushed at being caught as Kichirou nodded, creating an icy blue magic circle under the pair's feet as Ajuka added. Oh, keep your status a secret for now. We wouldn't want others to act on that information, would we now? Ajuka shot Surzex a knowing look as Kichirou nodded, the group exchanging their goodbyes, before he and Lucy disappeared in the glow of the magic circle. Kichirou and Lucy appeared from the magic circle in the corridor towards his wing of Beelzebub Palace, the home that Kichirou had raised since he was 6 by Ajuka, his peerage and the staff. The whole place was decorated in a mixture of blues and bronze, giving it a regal look, painting on the walls as the pair walked towards the living room for the wing. Do you know where the girls are? Kichirou asked a nearby maid, the blue and bronze-dressed young woman smiling to him as she replied. Pira-san and Cassie-san are in the living room. I believe Lenali-san was going to visit her brother, Kami. Thank you. Can you tell Lenali-chan to meet us in the living room, please? Kichirou asked the nearby maid, getting a smile and a responsive, yes, Master Kichirou, before she left. Inside the large room had several sofas and armchairs along with a coffee table and a large television mounted to the wall and bookcase against another, along with a holographic table that contained hundreds of different games ranging from chess to Space Invaders to different types of raiding games which could be played with any one of dozens of pre-loaded peerages. Akichi-sama, Lucy, you've returned, called a female voice from the game table. Kichirou smiling at seeing the 6-foot-tall young woman with waist-length red hair that was held in a waist-length ponytail, her bangs framing her vivid green eyes. She wore the Kuoh Academy uniform like Lucy but with knee-high red socks and brown ankle boots. Nice to see you're back so quick, Kichi-san. Lucy, another female voice spoke, pulling Kichirou into a hug after the redhead had. A 5'5" young woman putting the bookmark into her book as she stood up from one of the armchairs, with green hair that was tied up on the back of her head, creating 2 flat ponytails that reached her shoulders while 2 hair strands come down behind both her ears and 3 bangs cover her forehead with separations in between them to frame her brown eyes. She had added thigh-high white socks to her Kuoh Academy uniform and a pair of slip-on shoes. Thanks, Pira-chan, Cassie-chan. Kichirou replied with a smile as Pira, the redhead, and Cassie, the greenette, approached them as the latter spoke. How did the test go? I'm kinda surprised they moved it earlier. Well, I wanted to get back to Kuoh given Rias hasn't contacted me just to say everything was alright, and the test went really well. I'll explain the results when Lenali-chan is here, Kichirou replied, getting understanding nods as Pira added. You still need to find out Murayama-san and Keitei-san's choice to your offer as well. Yeah, I nearly forgot about that, Kichirou replied embarrassed, scratching the back of his neck as Lucy asked. Has there been any contact from Elizabeth-san? None at the moment. I think she's seeing what other offers she's getting from other kings, Kichirou answered with a shake of his head, hearing the door open behind him. Turning, he saw a 5'5" young woman with dark green hair held in chest-length twin tails, 3 bangs framing her purple eyes. A bright smile was on her face as she hurried over to Kichirou to hug him as she spoke. Welcome back, Kichi-sama. Hey, Lenali-chan. Kichirou replied with a smile, returning her hug before a familiar voice pierced the air. Lena-Lee-chan, you can't leave me. The group winced at hearing that, Lena-Lee breaking her hold on him as she sighed. I have to, I am part of Kichisama's peerage. Kamui-Lee shot Kichirou a dark look, his sister complex overcoming the fact the brunette had gotten him a place on Ajuka's scientific staff and helped Lena-Lee escape from exorcists. This is your fault. Kamui shouted as he pointed at Kichirou, making the brunette's sweat drop as he replied. Hey! I didn't force her to join my peerage, Kamui-san, and you said it was fine for her to join as well. Kichirou moved so Lena-Lee was behind him, Kamui's glasses shining with a dark gleam as he pulled a remote from his lab coat, pressing a button on it as he shouted. Kamlin! Get him! Kichirou sighed softly to himself before an icy blue aura burst into life around him, Lena-Lee moving back to the other three as the wall around Kamui exploded with the giant quadruped robot entered the room above him. Kichirou's eyes hardened as they flashed icy blue as he spoke. Let's make this quick, Kamui. We do have school today. Rias smiled at seeing Issei turn up early like she had asked, hoping he'd like her surprise as she spoke. Oh, you came. Good morning, Bucho, Issei Hyodo greeted as he sat down on the sofa opposite her as she replied. Yes, good morning. Looks like you have gotten used to the morning. Yes, thanks to you. Issei replied with a smile, Rias smiling growing slightly before looking at Issei's legs as she asked. How's the wound from the fallen angel? Yes, it's healed thanks to the healing power. Issei answered. Rias nodding to herself impressed at the twilight healing sacred gear of her new bishop, Asia Argento, as she replied. Is that so? That girl's healing power is very impressive. I can see why a single fallen angel would desire it, even keeping it a secret from its superiors. Bucho? If there is the same number of evil pieces as in chess itself, then it's possible to get 7 other pawns besides me, right? So will there be a day when another pawn besides me will join? Issei asked curiously, Ria's smile growing as she shook her head and answered. No, the only pawn I will have is a... Ria stopped herself from giggling at Issei's confused look, guessing he was trying to gauge whether it was some sort of confession or not as she explained. When reincarnating a human to a devil, we use the evil pieces, but it depends on the reincarnated person's ability, and therefore it may consume more chess pieces. There's a saying in the world of chess. Queens have a value of 9 pawns. Rooks have a value of 5 pawns. Knights and bishops have a value of 3 pawns each. Just like that, there are standard values that also apply to the evil pieces. A similar phenomenon happens to the reincarnated persons. There are people who require 2 knight pieces to be reincarnated, and also people who need 2 rook pieces to be reincarnated. There's also the compatibility of the pieces as well. You can't use 2 separate pieces to give them different roles, so it's important to think how to use the pieces. Since you don't get new pieces once you use it. How is that related to me? Issei asked confused, Rias smiling as she answered. I see, I used all of the pawn pieces when I resurrected you. If I hadn't, I couldn't have made you into a devil. When I found out, I decided to definitely make you into my servant. But I couldn't find the reason for a while. But now I'm convinced. The sacred gear that is said to be superior, one of the Longinus, the boosted gear. And you, Issei, who have it. That's why you had that much value. Kichi-kun won't be too happy with me if he finds out how I recruited him, Rias thought to herself with a mental cringe, noticing Issei looking over his arm as she added with a happy smile. When I was trying to reincarnate you, the only pieces I had left were 1 knight, 1 rook, 1 bishop and 8 pawns. To make you into my servant, I could only use all 8 pieces of pawn. The other pieces didn't have the power to reincarnate you. But to begin with, the value of pawn is still a mystery. Also because of promotion. That's why I gambled on that possibility. As a result, you were the best. Patting Issei's cheek, Rias soon decided to add. Our matching is also great since it's crimson and red, crimson hair ruined princess and red dragon emperor's gauntlet. Isse, first of all, aim to become the ultimate pawn. If it's you, you can definitely do it. Because you are my adorable servant. With that she kissed Issei on the forehead before adding. This is a good luck charm. Get stronger, okay? Issei's face reddened at what had happened, Rias glancing behind him as she smiled before sitting back down as she added. I probably should stop here for now, adoring you. The new girl will get jealous of me. Issei looked confused at her before a familiar voice made him jump. Issei-san? Turning around, Issei was surprised to see Asia standing there as he spoke, surprised at the small frown she wore. Asia? It has to be. Rias Bucho is very beautiful, so even Issei-san will also. Oh no. I can't think like that. Oh God. Please forgive my sinful heart. Asia spoke, making a small prayer only to hurt herself as she added. I have a headache. Of course. If a devil praises God, of course you will receive damage. Rias spoke normally, hoping that Asia would adjust to it as the blonde spoke, troubled. That's right. I turned into a devil. I can't face God anymore. Do you regret it? Rias asked with a hint of concern, Asia shaking her head as she replied. No, thank you very much. I'm happy as long as I am with Issei, so I'm fine even if I'm a different person. Issei blushed at hearing that, Rias smiling as she nodded and spoke. If so, then it's okay. From today, you will be my servant, and I will make you work along with Yes. I will do my best. Asia replied energetically before the trio was surprised by the icy blue magic circle that appeared over the magic circle that was on the floor of the room. Looks like he's come back, Rias spoke to herself with a bright smile, Issei frowning in confusion before his eyes widened at seeing Kichirou appear with his peerage. Kichirou blinking in confusion at seeing Rias, Issei and Asia there as he spoke. I didn't expect you to be up this early, Rias. Looks like you've been busy as well. Well, I had to introduce my new servant to everyone. Rias replied, signaling to Asia, who was looking confused as Kichirou nodded. What the hell are you doing here, Bifrons? Issei shouted, shocked, Rias resting her hand on her head as Kichirou blinked confused before turning to the redhead and asking. You didn't tell him about me? I was waiting till you came back from your mission, Kichi. Rias replied, averting her eyes embarrassed as Issei stared between Rias and Kichirou as the latter sighed before the former continued. I say, Asia, this is Kichirou Bifrons, he's a high-class devil like me and my childhood friend. Wait, so? Bifrons has a bunch of babes as his peerage and he grew up with you Bucho, Issei spoke, getting angry at the idea of Kichirou already being ahead of him, also being jealous that he had grown up with Rias, who sighed silently at her pawn's jealous glare. That is what Riasama said, Hyodo, Lucy replied, wrapping her arms lovingly around Kichirou and making him blush, and resting her head on his shoulder as he managed to roll his eyes as he spoke. Please don't rile him up, Lucy-chan. Plus, you should introduce yourselves to them. Of course, Kichi-sama? Lucy spoke with a smile, moving to stand in front of Kichirou as did Cassie, Lena Lee and Peerage as they introduced themselves with a small bow. I'm Lucy Hartfilia, 2nd year and Kichi-sama's queen. I'm Cassie Lockhart, 3rd year and Kichi-sama's knight. I'm Lena Lee, 2nd year and Kichi-sama's marshal. I'm Peerage Nikos, 3rd year and Kichi-sama's pawn. Kichirou could tell they were doing it for Asia's benefit more than Issei's, and he couldn't begrudge them for it with the pervert's reputation around the school and the fact Issei was now sending him a jealous glare as Asia smiled kindly and introduced herself. Asia Argento. 2nd year, starting today and I'm Bucho's new bishop. I see. Rias spoke, making her pawn break off her leering and introducing himself. Hyodo Issei, Bucho's pawn. I've never heard of a marshal before. Kichi-kun was raised by the creator of the evil pieces and one of the Mao Ajuka Beelzebub. Issei spoke shocked, Kichirou moving to sit down as he started to answer the unasked question while thinking back to when Ajuka had explained the additions to himself. Flashback. A 14-year-old Kichirou looked at the ornate wooden box that he knew his evil pieces was set inside, a mixture of excitement and nervousness inside him at the idea of starting to build his own family after. Kichirou shook his head from the thought of what had happened to his parents, opening the box after Ajuka's nod before being confused at the extra 4 pieces sitting in the box. His gaze moving to Ajuka, who smirked as he started to explain. This is the first of an upgraded version of the evil pieces that I've settled on after looking through the fairy chess pieces. There are the standard set of pieces with an additional pawn piece. The other pieces are the marshal, which is a combination of the powers of the rook and the knight. The Janus, which is a combination of the knight and bishop pieces. And lastly, this is the Wazir, the combination of the rook and bishop pieces. Ajuka signaled to each piece, Kichirou nodding as he took in the information before asking. Are these going to be the new standard, Ajuka-san? Yep. This is also why I didn't want to give you your pieces when Rias and Sona got them. I figured it would help you more with bringing back the Bifrons clan. Thanks, Ajuka-san, Kichirou replied with a smile, hugging the man before going about connecting them to his own power. Flashback and, oh, so that'll mean I can have a bigger harem when I get to high class, Issei spoke eagerly, Kichirou blinking confused at the reaction while seeing Rias facepalm at her pawn's words and the girls, aside from Asia, giving him disgusting looks. Pervert. Kaneko spoke with a glare from the doorway, Akino and Yuto behind her as the former spoke with a chuckle. Ufofu. Looks like Kichikun is back. Welcome back, Kisama, Yuto spoke with a smile, Kaneko giving Kichirou a welcome nod before taking a seat of her own away from Issei. Thanks, Akino-san, Yuto-san, Kaneko-san. I hope I haven't missed out of anything too interesting, Kichirou replied curiously, everyone settling down in seats as Rias and Akino explained what had happened during the week he had been gone. Issei scowled annoyed at how Rias was leaning against Kichirou, who nodded as he spoke. So, the fallen angels were after Asia-san's sacred gear and Issei-san was the one who saved her. Kichirou barely managed to avoid laughing at the looks of shock from Lucy and Peerage before he turned his gaze to Issei as he added. That was a dangerous thing you did, Issei. But I guess it worked out in the end. Just remember next time that you should plan more. Issei blinked in surprise as he slowly nodded, suddenly realizing that Rias had left out how he had become a devil. Anyway, make sure you look after Asia. Rias spoke as she looked over to Issei, who nodded while Asia bowed her head from where she sat next to him. Well, shall we start the party, shall we? Clicking her fingers, Rias made a large cake appear on the table, Kichirou chuckling as he glanced to his peerage as he spoke. Looks like we came back at a good time. Slipping out during the party, Kichirou smiled as he shook his head at how the girls seemed to take to Asia almost as a little sister given her naivety. I just hope they don't try and change her mind. She seems pretty adamant on Issei-san that I wouldn't be surprised if she has a crush on him, Kichirou thought with a smile as he started to walk to the main school building. From how Rias explained Issei's actions since becoming a devil, Kichirou could tell he was a good guy under when the perverted side was put to one side. Planning to storm a church filled with fallen angels and exorcists on his own was a good sign of it, even if it was a stupid plan at his current level of strength. Can't believe that Issei-san has the Longinus, boosted gear. Maybe the dragon inside can calm him down. Shaking off his thoughts about Rias' pawn, Kichirou came to a stop outside of the student council room and taking a calming breath before knocking on the door. He waited for a few moments before a stern female voice called out, "Come in." "Good morning, Kaicho," Kichirou spoke as he entered the room, Sona's eyes widening at seeing him before a small smile formed on her face as she greeted him. "Welcome back, Kichikun. Why don't you take a seat and tell me how did the mission go?" Sona signaled to the chair on the opposite side of her desk, Kichirou smiling as he moved to take the seat as he replied. "Thanks. It went rather well, considering we had to explore a small old Mao base in my clan's territory. We only had to fight a pack of horse-sized hellhounds that were roaming wild inside." "Horse-sized hellhounds?" Sona asked surprised, Kichirou nodding as he explained. Apparently the place was being used by the old Mao faction to experiment on demonic creatures to make them more dangerous. Well, that's what the information I got from the computers said. Beelzebub-sama is looking through everything we brought back, so should know some more sooner or later. I guess we'll just have to wait till the data is all analyzed, Sona spoke with a frown as she tried to figure out what the plans would have been for the old Mao how had resided there. Kichirou nodded in agreement, letting his gaze drift to the chessboard on the desk with an incomplete set of dark sapphire-colored chess pieces. A knight, a rook, and 3 pawns. She only had 1 pawn before, didn't she? Kichirou thought to himself before asking. "New pawns?" "Pawn," Sona replied, smirking slightly at seeing the pieces click as Kichirou nodded and spoke. "Sacred gear user then. Of course. I'll introduce him to you the next time you're here, Sona confirmed with a nod, resting her head on crossed hands as she asked. Are you going to finally talk to those two about joining your peerage? Hopefully I'll set a meeting today with them after school. Whether they join or not is another matter, and you know I don't like forcing the decision with people, Kichirou replied with a shrug, Sona chuckling as she retorted. I remember it took Cassie and Peerage a week of constant prodding before you accepted them, and they were born devils already. Kichirou blushed and averted his eyes at remembering that time, Sona enjoying the moment to look over the brunette who shrugged as he muttered. At least I can't get prodded constantly now, especially due to the secrecy we have to operate under. I'm sure some of your fans would still manage it, Sona spoke with an amused tone as Kichirou's face reddened in embarrassment before he shook his head as he replied. I should get going so I can ask Lena Lee-chan to talk to them about setting up a meeting. Kichirou smiled as he walked to his classroom with Lena Lee and Lucy, chatting about homework and what lessons they were to have today as they glanced around for Keitase and Murayama. So, what do you think of Asia-san? Kichirou asked curiously, Lena Lee tapping a finger on her chin as she thought to herself before answering. Well, she's a really nice girl, a bit naive, but she's too kind to probably hurt anyone. I agree with that, Lucy added quietly to avoid being overheard, Kichirou nodding in agreement as he added. That's what I thought. She'll be a great healer, but I figure Rias will focus on defensive magic with her when she gets around to it. I'll have to warn them about Diodora if they run across him. Entering into the classroom, Kichirou smiled as he broke away from Lucy and Lena Lee, who headed over to the girls to find out what gossip they had missed before moving to take his own desk, his gaze meeting the 5'2" young woman who sat at the desk behind him, her orange hair reaching down to her large chest while warm brown eyes focused on him as she spoke. Good morning, Kichi-kun. I hope you enjoyed your trip back to your home. Kichirou's smile grew at hearing that as he replied. Good morning, Oraheim-san. Thank you. Everything back there has been settled now. How was your weekend? It was rather peaceful. Oraheim started. Kichirou enjoyed the conversations he had with the friendly young woman ever since the start of the year where they had ended up in the same class. It's a shame she doesn't seem to have any special ability. Kichirou thought to himself with a mental sigh. Lucy and Lena Lee got along great with her as well, but he didn't want to force the supernatural world onto her if he decided to ask her to join his peerage. Glad you enjoyed yourself with the others even though I couldn't go. Kichirou replied, sheepishly scratching the back of his neck as Oraheim offered him a bright smile. Welcome back, Kichi-kun, Keitase spoke as she and Murayama entered the classroom, Kichirou offering a smile to the pinkette and brunette as Murayama added with a blush. Nice to see you're back, Kichi-kun. Thank you both. Oraheim-sen was telling you two went shopping with her and a few others, Kichirou replied with a smile, Murayama's blush darkening as Keitase gave her friend a teasing nudge as the former blurted out. And nothing special really. Keitase arched her eyebrow in expectance at her friend while Kichirou looked curious at the embarrassed reaction before the teacher walked into the room to start the day, forcing everyone to take their seats. Kichirou took a calming breath as he sat on one of the pair of comfortable sofas in the room next to the occult research club room, a room he had managed to set up for the meeting with Murayama and Keitase. Kichirou decided that it would be easier for him to talk to them without members of Rias Peerage around to distract them or in Issei's case to stop them from mistaking the pervert as being part of his peerage. Plus it'll be an interesting to Rias reaction if they accept, Kichirou thought amused, Peerage setting down a large tea set onto the coffee table set between the two sofas. The rest of school had been rather peaceful with him letting Lena Lee know about setting up the after-school and kendo practice meeting. This is great. Thanks, Peerage. Kichirou spoke with a smile as she moved to sit down next to him as she replied. Lucy gave me a hand with it before she and Cassie went to check on the church. I'll have to thank her when she comes back, Kichirou replied with a nod. He'd asked Lucy and Cassie to go check that the church was free of fallen angels and stray exorcists so that if Keitase and Murayama joined they wouldn't have any problems with them like Issei had. Also he didn't like the idea of letting something that could rip a sacred gear from its host being around, so he had told them to destroy if it was still there. He was brought of his thoughts by a knock on the door, soon followed by Lena Lee's voice coming through the door. Kichi-sama, I've brought them. Come in. Kichirou called back, the door opening to reveal Lena Lee leading a nervous Keitase and Murayama into the room. The brunette signaling to the other sofa as he spoke. Please take a seat and we can start. Do you want some tea? No thank you, Keitase spoke abruptly, cheeks reddening in embarrassment while taking her seat as Murayama added. I'm fine, thank you. Okay. Kichirou replied, Peerage handing him a cup of tea which he took a sip of before starting to speak. So, the reason I asked you both to come here today is to find out if you've made a decision about the offer I made to join my peerage about a fortnight ago. Of course, if you have any more questions I'll be happy to answer them now. Please feel free to talk amongst yourselves if you need to. Why would a devil go stray? Keitase asked curiously, Kichirou sighing sadly as he answered. Sometimes devil servants become strays by going against their master or hurting them or their fellow servants or abandoning their king. The reason we have to hunt them is because they risk devils being found out by the normal people, like what happened with both of you, or they can even do some gruesome things towards humans as well. Kichirou shuddered at saying that, Keitase and Murayama doing the same and reminding them of how they found out about him being a devil. Flashback. Keitase and Murayama glanced around warily as night set in, the pair walking back to their shared apartment after grocery shopping while they talked about random topics. A loud crack on their left made the pair stop as Murayama asked concerned, What was that? Don't know, let's not wait around to find out, Keitase spoke warily, pulling along her friend so they could continue to walk. A loud thud behind them made the pair turn to see a large werewolf with ripped pants and several injuries over its body working to get back up, its eerie yellow eyes locking onto them. Leave them alone! Kichirou shouted as he suddenly appeared in front of Keitase and Murayama, Lucy flying above with her devil wings while Cassie, Lena Lee and Peerage suddenly rushed out from the park they were near to attack the werewolf devil, each holding their weapons ready to attack. Flashback and would this interfere with our kendo practice? Murayama asked, Kichirou smiling as he shook his head and answered. No. You are free to keep doing that as it will help you with our training and would seem too odd for you to leave that club now. The only thing you'll both have to get used to is keeping your power at human-accepted levels around the other kendo members and explaining the increase in skill that will come about from our training. Devil duties will usually range from after school to late evening, so I don't think one will affect the other very often. What sort of devil duties are there? Keitase asked, Kichirou tapping his finger on his chin in thought before answering. Typically it will be devil contracts, although that won't be until you learn about the leaflets and do a few DLVY routes for them. Elsewise we occasionally fight stray devils, but we share that work with 2 other groups in the school, and in the future there will be competitive battles with other peerages, but I'll make sure to explain the rules and such well before time for those. Don't forget that we have to accompany you to those high-class parties, Lena Lee spoke amused, Peerage smirking as Keitase and Murayama looked surprised while Kichirou shuddered as he explained. There are those as well. Most of those you'll be free to do what you want, but as you would be representing my clan, you'd have to ensure you act in the proper manner. What pieces would we take? Murayama asked, trying to stop blushing at the idea of dressing up and dancing with Kichirou and aware her friend was blushing for a similar reason. I was going to make you both pawns, as while you are both capable swordswomen, I can see the promotion ability being able to aid you better, especially once Peerage has helped you adjust to the effects of it. Plus it would keep you both on an even level with each other, and your synergy and natural teamwork would make you a formidable duo, Kichirou explained, making them smile as they shared a look before nodding together. We'll accept, Keitase and Murayama spoke together, Kichirou smiling brightly as Peerage nodded approvingly and Lena Lee smiled. Right. So let's get started, Kichirou spoke to himself, summoning 2 pawn pieces from the box they were contained in as he stood up. Lucy and Cassie looked up at the damaged church, stretching their senses to pick up if anyone was inside as the former spoke. Looks like no one is home. Guess it's a good sign that the Gremory team did a good job clearing it out, Cassie spoke with a smile, Lucy chuckling as they walked inside to see pews in disarray and several cut into pieces or out of place. Yeah, but it seems a bit odd to only have one exorcist up here during the whole ritual, Lucy spoke as they walked relaxed towards the staircase that lead to the underground section of the church. They probably didn't expect Hyodo-san to go for the others, and underestimated him. Yudo-kun and Kaneko-chan, Cassie replied, Lucy biting her lip as she looked around before nodding. Makes sense. The pair walking in comfortable silence for a few moments before Cassie decided to ask. How do you think Kichi-sama is dealing with Keitei-san and Murayama-san? He'll make sure they know what they're getting into despite already having told them enough when they first found out about the supernatural world and then make the offer to join again, Lucy replied with a knowing smile, Cassie smiling in agreement as she spoke. He's always been a bit stubborn about recruiting others even when we were offering to join, worried that we are giving up parts of our lives for him when he doesn't deserve it. They'll soon set him right on that if the looks I've seen are any sign, Lucy spoke with a giggle, Cassie joining in as they stepped into the large room below the church. Their laughter was cut off once they spotted the large cross that they had been told Asia had been hanging off when she lost her sacred gear. So that's what can remove a sacred gear from its host, Lucy spoke with a frown as they looked at it from afar. I can't believe someone would create something so barbaric. Some people just can't accept the power they have, Lucy spoke just loud enough for Cassie to hear, the greenette nodding as she remembered some of the stray devils they had run into who had thirsted after power. I'll destroy the cross. You look around? Lucy asked, Cassie nodding before disappearing in a burst of speed as the blonde walked up to the cross, stopping several feet away to avoid getting caught in the backlash of its destruction as she pointed her hand at the cross, knowing that it would be a waste to use her true magic on the device. A golden-yellow magic circle quickly formed on her palm before a ball of demonic energy shooting out and making its target explode on contact. Good riddance. Lucy spoke to herself, clapping non-existent dust from her hands as she looked around to try and sense if there was any other devices around before turning to see Cassie walking over to her empty-handed as she answered the unasked question. Looks like there wasn't much aside some exorcist weapons and a few charging crystals for that thing. I took a few so Beelzebub-sama can have a look at them. Alright, let's head back and report to Kichirou. Lucy spoke with a smile as the pair made their way to leave the church. Kichirou smiled as he stood outside with the old school building with his Peerage and Rias Peerage before him with Rias standing next to him, everyone dressed in their P uniforms. The introduction to the ORC members for Keitei and Murayama had went well, aside from them both glaring fiercely at Issei and threatening to not hold back next time they caught him peeking on them. Lucy and Cassie returned and after explaining what they had found, Kichi had sent a report to Ajuka over what had been found, including some shards of the extraction cross and the powering jewels. He'd spent the last hour or so going over the more important details and figures in regards to the three factions, Issei and Asia joining in as Rias helped with explaining and testing the new devils. Alright, today we'll be doing a basic workout to see how well you can hold up to the training. Keitei-san, Murayama-san, don't worry about forcing yourself to complete it as this is so I can adjust it to better suit you and help you grow stronger, okay? Kichirou spoke, noticing the kendo duo's nervous looks as he continued reassuringly. Keitei-san, Murayama-san, I don't want to tire you out but more help build your stamina. Keitei and Murayama nodded understandingly, relaxing as Kichirou smiled as he added. Well, let's get started with some running once we've stretched and warmed up. Peerage moved to help Cassie stretch, Lucy and Lena Lee helping Keitei and Murayama respectively while Kichirou started stretching by himself. We'll be doing our own training, so don't feel like you have to keep up with the others. Asia, Issei, Rias added, drawing nods from the pair. Was it that tough for you when you started? Murayama asked between pants as she and Keitei lay on the ground, her gaze on Lena Lee who was offering them bottles of water as she smiled sympathetically as she answered. It was but Kichi-sama only wants to make sure we can all protect ourselves and each other. He's a DMN SLV driver. What happened to the normal Kichikuan? Keitei groaned out, having downed half of the bottle of water as Lena Lee explained. That is Kichi-sama's Lord Persona. He created it so we couldn't talk our way out of training at times and he wouldn't get embarrassed during battles. Rias and her Peerage had headed in while they were finishing up, Issei being dragged by Kaneko inside. Really? Murayama asked surprised, Peerage, Lena Lee and Cassie nodding as the greenette answered with a giggle. Yep, you should have seen Lucy's face when she tried to use a revealing outfit to distract Kichi-sama when she first joined only for him to douse her in icy cold water. Keitei and Murayama giggled at hearing that with Lena, Peerage smirking as Lucy spoke embarrassed. I can't believe you're still bringing that up. If you had warned me, I wouldn't have tried it. You're not always going to get a warning before a fight, Lucy-chan. Even the data we can gather for the rating games or strays will be missing pieces, Kichirou replied with an amused smile as he walked over, his cheeks reddening slightly at the memory before shaking his head free as he added. Surprises will happen even if you know what your opponent can do, and plans never survive against an enemy, so you always need to keep on your toes. The girls nodded at hearing that before being surprised as Kichirou clicked his fingers as he focused on Keitase and Murayama as he spoke. Now there's only one other thing I really need to explain to you both, given that my evil pieces are different. Promotion for you also allows you access to the Marshall, Janus and Wazir pieces, but the power-ups would be in between a queen's overall power-ups, as it is the combined rook, knight and bishop, and the specialized power-ups that only becoming, say, a rook would give you. This also means that you have more options available, but you shouldn't worry about adjusting your fighting style, as I don't expect you to try and use all other pieces during a fight, just those you feel comfortable using, okay? Yeah. Right. Keitase and Murayama replied, nodding in understanding as thoughtful looks crossed their faces. Kichirou smiled at seeing that look, moving so he could whisper in Peerage's ear. Perhin, I know you can help them with this, so I'll leave it to you. Peerage blushed at the praise, nodding in acceptance of the job as Kichirou gave her shoulder a small squeeze before he turned to the rest of the group as he spoke. Right? That should be enough for today, so go relax for now and come back this evening for devil duties. Keitei-san, Murayama-san, you can rest of the rest of today, and tomorrow we'll start teaching you magic, and then while the others do contracts you can go along with them to see what to expect when you start yourself. Walking home on his own, Kichirou smiled at how well the two kendo girls had handled the training earlier. He knew he would end up being hard on them as the others had more training and experience, Peerage and Cassie from growing up alongside him, while Lena Lee and Lucy had made great strides since joining. I'll have to ask Urahara-sensei about seeing if he can get some swords for them both once I know what elements they have an affinity for, Kichirou mentally added to his small list, behind getting the girls adjusted to training, getting them to learn magic and getting them settled into their leaflet and contract duties. He could ask Hyodo for a couple of swords, but they most likely would only be temporary for Keitase and Murayama, as sword birth blades worked best for the user. Briefly looking at the apartment block before him, Kichirou could still marvel at Ajuka's ease at disguising the large mansion to fit in. It had about 6 floors above ground with enough rooms for his full peerage, 5 bedrooms each floor with a modest-sized bathroom, with the top 2 floors for guests and an elevator to easily move between them as well as stairs. The ground floor was like a normal home, kitchen, dining room, living room and a study for himself. Underground has 2 floors, a training room on the first, filling half of the floor, while the other side had a library filled with books ranging from magic, sacred gears and strategies, and even doubled as a planning room. Below that was the floor that had a large sauna, swimming pool and giant bathroom. Entering, Kichirou moved towards the room at the far right of the entrance hall, which happened to be his office, the room large enough to have a desk and 3 comfortable chairs for meetings, along with another sofa off to the side for when they had to meet in there. I guess I better make a start on paperwork then, Kichirou spoke with a sigh as he looked at the stack of paper on the desk. The papers ranged from work for the school in the underworld he had attended for high-class devils to what paperwork he would receive for the Bifrons territory. The latter paperwork was mostly a mixture of details on the running of towns, businesses in his territory, and business involving the council meetings for all clans, which, while being only there to watch, for the most part, as he wasn't old enough to truly take part. He was halfway through the stack before a knock on the door distracted him, rubbing his eyes absently with one hand while shaking the other to avoid cramp as he called out, "Come in." Kichirou blinked as Sona stepped into the room, pink dusting her cheeks as she spoke. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Oh, of course not, Sona. I'm just trying to catch up on the backlog." "What's up?" Kichirou asked, concerned, as he signaled to the chair opposite him, which Sona quickly took, smoothing her skirt with her hands before fixing her glasses as she decided to ask rather than explain right away. "Did you get anything from my two-sama?" Kichirou arched an eyebrow at that question, moving his gaze to the pile of paperwork he still had to go through before starting to flick through them as he replied, "So far there's been nothing." "Oh wait, here it is." Pulling a letter from amongst the pile, Kichirou quickly skimmed it as Sona spoke. I told Sama about how you beat me in that chess game before your mission. Yeah, but that was probably a fluke given the amount of times you've beaten me, Kichirou replied absently before reaching the end of the letter and nodding as he shook the letter in his hand as he added. It only says that he wants to meet to sort out an update for the alliance between Bifrons and Citri in a couple of days. Do you have any idea why he wants to update it? Sona shook her head in response as she replied, I would prefer not to jump to conclusions for now. Fair enough, Kichirou replied, taking a moment to write a reply to Lord Citri before sending it through a magic circle so he would get a time to arrive at. Sona stood up, offering the brunette a smile as she spoke. I should leave you to finish your paperwork, don't want to be the cause of you having to go back to the underworld for school. All right then, Kichirou replied as he stood up and walked with her to the front door as Sona asked. Where are your peerage? Oh, they are getting to know my new members. I wouldn't be surprised if they are gossiping about the other devils just so they won't be surprised when they meet your group, Kichirou replied with an amused look, Sona giving him a mock-annoyed look as she spoke. Shame. At least Hyodo will give me a good reaction. Are you looking into having your new members get their familiars or? That's next week, isn't it? Kichirou asked, getting a nod from Sona as he continued. Nah, they only got reincarnated today, so I want to get them up to speed and used to training before going after familiars. I'll probably watch, seeing as someone has to keep you and Rias in line when you compete for the right to go. Alright, Sona blushed as she averted her eyes, remembering how she and Rias would argue over what they would do as kids while Kichirou ended up playing peacemaker and decider at times. He also would step in to protect them on the odd occasion some sort of animal got into the forest near the gardens they played in. What are you thinking of having the competition being? Kichirou asked as he opened the front door, Sona stepping outside and glancing back at him as she replied. Probably a game of tennis first. Just make sure that you don't use magic in front of everyone if you use the school courts, Kichirou replied with a knowing look, Sona blushing before responding sternly. Of course. But I will if Rias tried to use it first. That's fair, Kichirou spoke with a nod, the pair saying their goodbyes before Sona left. So, Kichi-san really made a rule over who can join his peerage? Kate spoke surprised as she regarded Cassie, who nodded in response as Lucy giggled as she answered. He has had trouble with recruiting people ever since he first became known in the underworld about 6 months ago, mostly people who were trying to use him or battle maniacs and perverts. Of course they never put that down on the forms the underworld have to apply to a peerage, so it doesn't come out till the tryouts, which gets annoying, Lena Lee added, seeing Murayama and Kate nodding in understanding before the former asked. How did you all join? Pura and I both grew up with Kichi-sama as our parents serve on Beelzebub-sama's peerage. Kichi-sama was really shy back then as well, so we had to look out for him as well, Pura explained with a smile, Cassie agreeing with a nod and a bright smile as she added. Remember how he used to call us Cassie-nichan and Pura-nichan back then? Pura's face reddened at remembering that, a small nod her response to Cassie before Lena Lee spoke up next. Kichi-sama saved me and my Oni-san from members of the church that were after me because of my sacred gear. They wanted to force me to become an exorcist because of it, and he stepped in and brought us both to the underworld so we would be safe. It took me about a week to convince Kichi-sama to let me join his peerage with Pura and Cassie's help. Lena Lee smiled wistfully at remembering how the three of them had pinned Kichirou to his bed and tickled him, Cassie giggling as she added. That was when Kichi-sama's first kiss was stolen as well, although that was by accident. Kate and Murayama spoke surprised, cheeks reddening as Lena Lee looked down embarrassed as she retorted. I couldn't help it, he is really cute. Especially when he tries to be serious back then, when just a bit of leg or chest just sent him blushing. Yeah, back then Kichi-sama would stop spars with me just so I could change into new clothes when they were damaged enough to show my chest or bum, Cassie spoke with a blushing smile as Murayama commented. I can see Kichi-san doing that. Yeah, I can as well. Kate agreed with a dreamy look. I can't believe that I missed this cause of being the one to join after Graphia-sensei trained him, Lucy spoke with a pout, getting giggles from Lena Lee and Cassie as Pura looked amused. How did you join, Lucy-san? Murayama asked curiously, Lucy smiling as she ran her hands over her skirt for a moment before answering. Well, the first thing you need to know is that the Heartfilia family is a renowned group of magicians who know a unique style of magic. My cousin died when I was young, and after that my two-sen buried himself in work and business regarding making and selling magical items. I ran away when I found out he had put me into a marriage contract with another magical family just to get access to their money, and during my travels I ran into Kichi-sama when I had got targeted by a group of stray magicians. I still remember how he appeared before me and threw up a barrier without a second glance. Lucy looked dreamily off to the side, missing the surprised looks from Keitase and Murayama before Peerage asked. So what would you like to know next? What are Kichi-san's parents like? Keitase asked curiously, only to realize she had said something wrong as Lucy, Peerage, Cassie and Lena Lee looked down sadly before Peerage answered. Kichi-sama doesn't talk about it much, but he lost his parents when he was a child. He was raised by the Mal Beelzebub and his Peerage. As he's the last of his clan, he's also already became the head of the Bifrons clan. It means he is charged with repopulating the clan as well. Lucy spoke with a blush as the implication hit Murayama and Keitase and made them blush as well. Polygamy is accepted amongst devils and many high-class devils have harems as well, Cassie added. Keitase looking conflicted as she asked. So, Kichi-san has a harem? This, not that he knows of yet. We haven't sprung it on him about our plan, but we aren't going to force you two to join or not. Kichi-sama won't force you to do anything you don't want to do either. Lena Lee spoke with kind smile, Murayama and Keitase looking thoughtfully about the offer they were just presented. Kichirou floated by only the use of the two sets of wings from his back, the left fallen angel and the right devil, having changed into a set of black jeans and dark blue zipped-up jacket as he looked at the 5 metal robots he would be fighting in the training room. They were only realistic dummies as part of the room's abilities and could cause paint marks to show what sort of damage they would cause in a real fight at its lowest setting and real damage at its highest. Beak Lance, Kichirou spoke, activating his sacred gear to create one of his weapons. Forming in his hands was a large blue pole with an icy blue double-edged arrow-headed blade set on top, sticking out of the beak of the bird-like face. The other end of the spear had a bird. Start! Kichirou called, the fallen angels creating a variety of light weapons into their hands before charging at him. The first to reach him was 2 that threw light spears which he deflected with a spin of his spear before he blocking a robot with a light sword overhead, bringing one of his legs up to kick them back before stabbing out with his spear and cut off its sword arm at the shoulder. Ice Beam, Kichirou called as he threw out his free hand, icy blue lightning covering his hand before shooting forwards and freezing the robot where the lightning touched till he fell to the ground. Ascending Kichirou dodged a barrage of light arrows aimed at him from 2 while the other 2 were trying to flank his sides, pointing the blade of his lance at the 2 archers as he focused as he created a magic circle around where they stood as he called, Magician's Freeze. Ice erupted from the magic circle engulfing the 2 archers in a large spiky block of ice which soon dropped to the floor and shattered, Kichirou coating his blade with water as he swung it out to his right in an upwards vertical swing, Hydro Cut. The robot was forced to slow down to dodge the attack, giving Kichirou the time to turn to his other opponent as he spoke softly, Tail Feather Sword. The spear in his hands disappeared only to be replaced by a western sword that had a long feather-like icy blue blade that was rounded at the tip, the handle looking simple in royal blue. Gripping the sword in his left hand, Kichirou swung it down only to be stopped by the lance before a glance back helped him dodge the move from the spear behind him. Water Prison! Kichirou called, flicking his free hand at the 2 robots and trapping them both into large ball of water before another flick made the turn into ice. He waited a few seconds to ensure they wouldn't break out or another surprise attack would happen before he relaxed and dismissed his weapon as he mumbled. I really should get a Jukasan to unlock the higher difficulty. Checking the time on his phone, Kichirou suddenly realized the time as he added. Best get back to the school for contracts today. Now all I have to do is hope that Oda-san decides that my idea would be better for the clan, Surzex thought with a small smile as he left the office of his father to see Grafia standing there waiting for him with an annoyed look on her face as she spoke. I take it that you have presented your plan to Gremory Dano? I still do not approve of using Kichirou-kun like this. I know, But we both know that Rias would have a very tough time defeating him at the moment, even with the Sekiryuutei amongst her peerage, Surzex replied, Grafia narrowing her eyes as she retort. You also are aware that Ajuka has told Kichirou to avoid using his fallen angel powers around other devils who don't already know about them, unless it's an emergency. That will make things more difficult for him as well. Oh, don't you have any confidence that your student could win? Surzex asked teasingly, Grafia frowning as she replied. I know that Kichirou is as strong as him, but you know that he has no experience with the raiding games and he will be outnumbered as well. Even though his peerage is rather skilled, they will have some trouble. Also, the last thing Kichirou needs is to lose respect for not winning this raiding game if your plan goes ahead. Kichirou grumbled as his alarm clock started to ring, lazily lifting his head to check the time only to realize that he was being pinned to the bed by Cassie, who was using his shoulder as a pillow while hugging him. He remembered the nightmares he would have as a child, seeing his parents try and protect him and each other before the black flames consumed them or giant blade cut through them before he was transported away by magic circle. It had taken Cassie and Peerage sleeping next to him on alternate night to stop them, and it soon became natural for him to not sleep alone, and even Lucy and Lena Lee joined the rotation eagerly. He turned hoping he could use his free hand to stop the alarm, only to realize that he couldn't move that arm at all. A small frown forming as he looked towards it and saw Rias hugging his arm to her chest. What the Rias? Kichirou asked, surprised and annoyed, finding himself fully awake as he wondered why Rias would sneak into his bed. What's the noise about? Cassie sleepily mumbled, blinking her eyes free of sleep before looking surprised at seeing Rias waking up as she spoke with a smile. Morning, Kichi. What are you doing here? You do know how much trouble you could be in if Grafia-sensei found us like this? Kichirou spoke nervously, glancing around just in case Grafia suddenly appeared. What's wrong about this? You still have on your pajamas, and she knows we've done this when we had sleepovers as kids, Rias replied with a frown on her face, Kichirou about to apologize only for Cassie to rest a hand on his shoulder as she spoke instead. He's just worried about how it looks, Rias-sama. Any accusation thrown at the both of you could cause a lot of trouble, especially with who your fiancé is. Yeah. He may be a flaming perverted Gigel, but he has a powerful clan in agreement with this all, and there's no idea what could happen if one of you break the agreement that was made. Kichirou spoke sympathetically, Rias smiling at how the brunette referred to her fiancé before sobering at realizing he was right. Slowly a resigned look formed on Rias' face, Kichirou quick to add it in the hopes to break it. Not to say that there isn't a way out of it, it's just that you need to be careful not to fall into anything that could make things worse for you and your peerage. All right. Rias spoke with a sigh, her face soon reddening as Kichirou softly kissed her on the cheek, which he also gave Cassie, before heading into the ensuite bathroom to get ready for the day. He's right, you know? Cassie spoke with a warm smile, drawing Rias' attention as she continued. Surzex-sama cares about you, Bucho. Even if his position as Mao makes things hard for him, I can see he'll try and offer a way out for you. Plus, Kichi-sama would be happy to help you if he could. I know, thanks Cassie. Rias spoke with a smile, moving to collect her pile of clothes. Standing in the hallway, Grafia let a small smile form on her face at hearing the conversation between Kichirou and Rias as she thought approvingly, looks like Kichirou averted a potential dilemma, and with this Surzex-sama's plan should go without a hitch. With that she used a transportation circle to go back to the underworld so no one would know that she had been there. After school that day saw Kichirou having to check the magic reserves of both kendo girls once they found out about Issei's inability of using magic circles and thus having to travel around for his contracts on a bicycle. You both have modest reserves, so I doubt you'll have trouble using magic circles on your own, Kichirou reassured them both. Keitase and Murayama releasing a relieved breath as he added. Issei-san is just an unusual case, as even baby devils have enough magic for transportation circles. Don't snicker, it's not his fault. Keitase averted her eyes, embarrassed at getting told off, while Murayama blushed, Lucy biting her lip to stop her own giggle after Kichirou shot her a stern look as well before he continued. He'll learn to use them eventually once he's trained and built up his magic reserves. Looking around from the desk he often used, Kichirou caught Rias' amused look before he focused on his two new pawns as he asked. Now, Today you can start learning magic or hand out leaflets like Issei-san and Asia-san are doing. I'd like to learn magic, Murayama spoke up first as Keitase added. Yeah, I would like to learn some magic as well. Kichirou nodded in understanding, looking to Lucy as he spoke. I'll need your help for this then. Alright, let's go use one of the other rooms so we have enough space. Lucy spoke with a nod before signaling to Keitase and Murayama to follow her out of the room. Looks like we should move forwards Asia and ASC's magic training as well when they come back, Rias commented, Akino smiling as he added. Kichirou really wants those two to be ready. You think he's worried something will happen? Rias looked thoughtful at that, shuffling through papers for the contracts that Issei had attempted before speaking quietly so none of the remaining members of Kichirou's peerage could hear. Yeah, but I doubt he knows that the Phoenix are trying to push that forwards. Take a seat and we'll start. Kichirou spoke while signaling to one of the chairs in the room, waiting for Keitase and Murayama to take a seat while Lucy smiled as she started to explain. Now, magical power for devils come from the aura that covers the whole body. From that it can be turned into fire, water, or any type of magic that a person can learn. What sort of magic can you use, Kichi-sama? Keitase asked, Kichirou smiling as he held his arm out with his palm up as a ball of ice appeared as he answered. I typically use ice, water, and wind magic, but I can use fire and thunder as well. Although they are ice variations, the ball of ice turned into water before the water evaporated into a ball of steam that swirled around his hand before disappearing. What about you, Lucy-san? Murayama asked curiously, Lucy smiling as gave Kichirou an asking look, him nodding before she answered. I use a rare type of magic called celestial spirit magic. It revolves around the user connecting with spirits based on the constellations and using their abilities to fight, but that's only after making a contract with the spirit through a special spell. The stronger the user, the stronger the spirit I can make a contract with. At seeing Keitase and Murayama's shocked looks, Lucy smiled as she added, I can use elemental magic as well because of my experience with my spirits. Lucy and Kichirou smiled at the pair before Kichirou clapped his hands together to get their attention again as he started to explain. What you first need to do is concentrate and feel the wave of magic power and start by gathering it into a ball in your hands like this. Lucy held her hands out before her as an orange-sized ball of energy formed between her hands, swirling in a rainbow of colors as Kichirou continued. Now if you close your eyes and meditate, it'll make things easier for you to access it and imagine the flow so it will gather in your hand. Imagination is the key part of devil's magic. Keitase and Murayama nodded, closing their eyes so they could focus. Half an hour passed as Kichirou and Lucy watched the pair try and gather their magic before any results came about. Both girls having orbs the size of a tennis ball forming in between their hands, both a mixture of blues in color, and looking at them impressed as Kichirou spoke, that's great. Now let go of it and try again. You need to learn to access your magic in an instant when you need it. Once you can do that, we'll start teaching you to turn it into elements, Lucy added, getting nods from Keitase and Murayama as they continued training, Kichirou giving her a nod before moving to find Peerage to come help out. I've just finished starting magic training with my two new pawns, and because they know kendo, I was wondering if you could get a sword for both of them. They both will probably use water and ice like me. Kichirou asked as he looked at the holographic Kisuk, one of Ajuka's peerage, who smirked amused as he replied. All right. I don't mind helping you with this, but why not ask Rias Knight? Well, sword birth can only make so good a sword for them to use, and I wouldn't want to make them reliant on Hyodo so they could fight at their full potential. Plus his swords aren't as strong as a proper demonic or magical sword. That makes sense then. I have a few things I've been working on, so they might be a bit experimental but should be stronger than what Hyodo-kun can make. Oh, I'm just about finished with checking Hyorinmer for you. It looks perfectly fine despite being in the ruins of Bifrons Manor, so I'll leave it with Ajuka-sama as well as the girls' swords. Kisuk replied with a smile which turned lecherous as he asked. So how are your girls? They are good, getting along well with the two new members and helping them out with their training. Keitase-san and Murayama-san, the new members, are currently training with Peerage-chan and Lucy-chan to turn their magic into elements, so I can start them on leaflets duty soon, but they'll have to do some more training before I move on to combat-orientated stuff. How are things back in the underworld? Kichirou answered, trying to not let the knowing look fluster him as Kisuk replied. That's good. Well, obviously not as fun as you're having, but everything is alright. Ajuka-sama is busy working on one of his projects and the others are trying to make sure he remembers about his duties. Oh, before I forget, Arisu-chan is missing you as well. Tell her that I'll try and visit soon. Probably around the time I have the meeting with the Citri clan in a couple days. It'll probably be only me and Lucy-chan, given it might be better for me to let the others bring up Keitei-san and Murayama-san up to speed, Kichirou replied, scratching the back of his head as Urahara looked amused as he spoke. Of course. I'll let her know about that. I'll also try and have the swords ready for then as well. A loud smash echoed in the background, cutting him off from adding any more, Urahara looking off to the side before sighing as he spoke. I best get going before Evangeline-chan tries to destroy Khan. Bye. Bye, Urahara-sensei. Kichirou replied with a sweat drop at the idea of the lowly vampire bishop of Ajuka's peerage starting a brawl with the mod soul Urahara was working on upgrading. The hologram ending as the magic circle underneath disappeared, Kichirou turning to the doorway as he heard Rias giggle. Looks like things are interesting back home, huh? Yeah. Kichirou replied with a chuckle as he scratched the back of his head before he asked. Have Asia-san and Issei-san returned from handing out leaflets? They're still out delivering them, Rias answered, Kichirou nodding before Rias asked curiously. Any idea what the meeting with Sona's parents is about? Oh, it's about updating the alliance between us. Not like there's anything to really update to my knowledge, Kichirou replied with a shrug, Rias looking thoughtful as they headed back to the others. Issei shot a jealous glare at Kichirou as he sat opposite him and Asia before forcing it down at seeing the angry glares from Lucy, Keitei and Murayama from where they sat working on homework. Rias and Akino had gone for some sort of meeting and leaving Kichirou in charge. So how are you adjusting to devil life, Issei-san, Asia-san? Kichirou asked, Asia smiling brightly as she replied. It's been great, Bifrons-sama. Everyone has been really welcoming to me. Please just call me Kichi, Asia-san. I'm not your king and there's no need to be formal at the moment, Kichirou replied, turning his attention to Issei as he asked. How about you, Issei? It's great. Issei replied with a shrug, giving a wary and annoyed look to Kichirou. So what made you both decide to join Rias Peerage? Kichirou asked, guessing that Issei would have joined just to get the chance to try and become close to Rias and Akino. Well, Bucho saved me after Rainer, a fallen angel, killed me. She was pretending to be my girlfriend for a couple of days beforehand. Issei started as he explained how he and Asia joined due to Rainer's plan to take Asia's twilight healing for herself and how Issei, Hyodo and Kaneko had gone to save her. Rias. How could you make that sort of gamble on innocent lives? Kichirou thought with a frown as he realized she had been taking dangerous risks in regards to adding to her peerage. So you really want to have a harem? Kichirou spoke thoughtfully, filing away the conversation he would need to have with Rias next time they were alone as Issei replied. Yeah, I mean you have all girls in your peerage. Ah, well that wasn't my intention when I started to gather members. Kichirou admitted, slightly embarrassed as he scratched his cheek before continuing. I've been meaning to find a couple of guys to join, but well, every time I find someone with potential, the girls seem to find something wrong with them. Issei glanced to Lucy to see her smiling innocently as she noticed him looking at her. Asia looking curious as she asked, what was wrong with them? Well, the most common problems were that they were perverts or battle maniacs. There was a few who wanted to use me for their own gain or had lied about what sort of training they had been through before, Kichirou answered, Issei looking surprised as he asked. Is it like applying for a job? Devils who want to join peerages have to fill out details about themselves and then those can be sent to kings who are looking to recruit. From there it is up to the king to arrange when to meet with them and see if they are right to join the peerage. Normally it can range from interviews to active tests or even spars between the potentials to ensure they would get the strongest to join the peerage, Kichirou explained to a surprised Asia and Issei, Keitei and Murayama listening in as well curiously as Kichirou added. But anyway, the girls tend to be rather persuasive about who would join or not as I want my peerage to get along and work together. Issei felt a chill run down his spine at realizing that Kichirou was rather whipped by the girls in his peerage. He missed the blush that formed over Keitei's and Murayama's faces as Lucy whispered something into their ears. Probably best not to tell him how they persuade me. Maybe it'll help him change his ways, Kichirou thought, slightly embarrassed at how susceptible he was to the girls flashing their chests or butts at him when he was younger. Rias hummed to herself as she went about tidying the clubroom after everyone had left for the night, setting a small pile of feedback from contractors on her desk before Kichirou asked from table she was cleaning up. Rias, why did you risk Issei-san's life like that? I know you want to get out of that, but you took away his choice in letting the fallen angels get him. How do you think his parents would have felt if he didn't summon you and died instead? Rias lowered her head, his bangs hiding her eyes as Kichirou silently sighed as he was about to continue only for Rias to interrupt him. I know that I shouldn't have done it to. I would have caused so much pain to his parents. It was much too like what my parents are doing to me. Rias turned to face Kichirou, an ashamed look on her face as she moved towards him and continued, and Asia, I shouldn't have let her go through that pain as an attempt to draw out the power in Ise when he fought Rainier and should have just started training him earlier instead. Kichirou nodded in agreement before deciding to speak up. Rias? There could be untold emotional damage from what Ise-san went through with Rainier. I mean, she played with his feelings just to lure him in and then smashed it all when she killed him. I don't know yet, but he may have trouble with. You really think so? Rias asked, shocked. Kichirou nodding slowly before his phone rung loudly in the room and he moved to answer it quickly. Hello, Ajuka-san. So the meeting is going to be at Astaroth Manor. All right, I'll be there then. Rias watched as Kichirou leant against the wall as he listened to Ajuka on the line before replying. No. I'd rather not overwhelm Keitei-san or Murayama-san with politics and protocol or Diodora-san yet. All right, then I'll see you soon. Ending the call, Kichirou let out a breathe before slipping his phone into his pocket as he looked back to Rias. I best go. I've got to get ready for a meeting with Sona's parents tomorrow. All right, Rias replied distractedly as she thought over what she had accidentally done to Issei. Kichirou took a calming breath as he fixed the black formal suit with an icy blue shirt he was going to wear for his meeting today as he stood in the shower that was off from the clubroom. The last few days had passed by fairly normally. Keitei's and Murayama's training had been alternated between physical and magical so they wouldn't be too worn out with their kendo practice, leaflet duties and what homework that they had. Glancing into the mirror before him, Kichirou caught the curious look of Rias and Lena Lee who were standing by the doorway. I'll leave the others in your care. Lena Lee-chan, you and Peerage-chan keep the others on track with their training as well. Maybe start them off with their sparring as well, Kichirou suggested, Lena Lee nodding in understanding as she replied with an amused smile. Right, Kitsama? I'll tell Peerage to hold back as well. You don't mind having Hyodo help out as well? Rias asked curiously, Kichirou shaking his head as he tried to fix his tie as he replied. Of course not. Want any help with Issei-san's? No, I'm still trying to build up his reserves at the moment, Rias replied with a smile, Kichirou nodding in understanding before taking a calming breath and heading back into the clubroom, finding attention focused on him as he fidgeted in his suit. Era. Kichisama looks rather dashing, Akino spoke with a leer, Rias looking annoyed at her queen as a blushing Peerage nodded in agreement even as Cassie covered her mouth to stop the small giggle at seeing Keitei's and Murayama's stares at Kichirou. Looks like we're ready, Kichisama, Lucy spoke with a smile as she stood from the sofa she had been sat on, wearing a formal long-sleeved white blouse under a black suit jacket, a black pencil skirt and black-heeled shoes, giving off the appearance of a secretary right down to the slim framed glasses she was wearing. Her hair was even put into a ponytail and clipped up at the back. Right? Now you lot behave, Kichirou spoke with a teasing smile on his face, Lucy giggling as she moved to stand next to him while the others laughed. With a flick of Kichirou's hand, an icy blue magic circle formed underneath the pair before shining brightly as it transported them away. When the light died down, Kichirou and Lucy looked around the entrance hall of Astaroth Manor, decorated in soothing green and black. Kichirou's gaze was wary as while he was okay with the air of Astaroth clan and Ajuka's little brother, Diodora, something just didn't sit well in his gut. Oni-chan. A green-haired blur called in a female voice as they slammed into Kichirou's torso, Lucy giggling into her hand as her master wobbled on his feet as he hugged the 15-year-old girl. Hey Arisa-chan. Kichirou replied, looking at the bespectacled girl with her leafy green hair falling down to her chest. Lucy smiled as she looked around, half expecting her older brother, Diodora, to appear as Kichirou asked. I wonder why Diodora-san hasn't come to greet us? Oh. Diodora-san came back a few days really angry and going on about his plan being ruined by some idiot with a dragon saving the nun he was after, Arisu answered with a frown, Kichirou and Lucy sharing concerned look as they both thought. He was after Asia? Should warn Rias about him. I don't understand why Diodora-san like church girls. But I'm glad that Lenalin within your peerage instead, Arisu spoke with an innocently confused look, Lucy smiling as the latter replied. It's all right. Kichi-sama wouldn't trade anyone, Kichirou nodded in agreement as he added. I don't like the idea of trading servants, even if Diodora-san tries to insist that it's a good thing. They chose to join me of their own will and trading them would cheapen that choice. Diodora had been after Lena Lee as well once he had found out from Kichirou that the church had been after her to make her an exorcist. He only had given up due to Kichirou's constant refusal and the fact Lena Lee was a marshal and Diodora didn't have the upgraded evil piece set so she couldn't be traded to him anyway. Onin, the Jukana-sama is waiting for you in the drawing room, Arisu spoke up, her cheeks red at his words as she suddenly remembering what she had been meaning to tell Kichirou. Thanks. We'll head there now, Arisu. Oh, Oda-san wanted me to give this to a Jukana-sama, Arisu spoke up, pulling a shrunken folder from her pocket before letting it return to its normal size as she handed it over to Kichirou who gave his thanks. With that, Kichirou, Lucy and Arisu parted ways, the latter heading off to complete her homework from the underworld school she attended, leaving the former pair to head off to the drawing room to see Ajuka and wait for the citrus to arrive. Hey Ajuka-sen. Kichirou spoke with a smile as he entered the drawing room to see Ajuka looking up from a folder of papers he held as he replied. Hey Lucy. Ready for this meeting? I guess. Not really sure what it's about though. Kichirou replied with a nervous tone before Lucy nudged him to get him to remember about the folder Arisu had given him as he added. Oh, Arisu-chan said that Astroth Towson wanted her to give you this, handing the folder. Ajuka gave his thanks before moving to start reading the folder that he had been handed as Lucy asked. Ki-sama, Beelzebub-sama, would you like some tea? Yes please Lucy-chan. How long till they arrive? Kichirou replied as he sat down, glancing to Ajuka when he asked his question only to see him looking at the folder with an amused look as he answered. A few minutes so hold off on the tea till then Lucy nodded at hearing that, standing at Kichirou's right side and giving a curious look to Ajuka who was reading the folder again. Kichirou fidgeted slightly where he sat before stilling as Lucy rested a hand on his shoulder, the brunette glancing back to give her a thankful smile as they waited. So Kisuk told me about your new recruits, Ajuka started after a moment, closing and setting down the folder onto the coffee table as he continued. He's going to try and get the swords here for after the meeting if he has finished them by then. I must say I'm slightly surprised you haven't been looking for other sacred gear users while in the human world. Unless you are following Surzek's ideals for a peerage. Not really following Lucifer-sama in that regard. Kichirou started slowly as he nodded, taking a sip of tea before continuing. But I don't really think it's fair to just focus on those who have sacred gears when there are people that are skilled in their preferred style. Keitei-san and Murayama-san are both skilled kendo practitioners from their club and it would be silly of me to discard the potential they have just because they don't have a sacred gear. But I hope we aren't interrupting anything. Lord Citri spoke from the doorway with a smile, standing next to his wife and an approving-looking Sona and calm-looking Tsubaki. Of course not, Lord Citri. Ajuka spoke with a smile as he and Kichirou stood up as the quartet moved to take seats on the opposite sofa as the brunette spoke. It's nice to see you again, Lord and Lady Citri. Lord Citri easily stood at 6 feet tall with a wide muscular frame that could intimidate people he wanted to, black hair looking untamable while dark blue eyes twinkled merrily. His wife looked like an older version of Sona, her black hair styled in a French braid and wore a long-sleeved navy blue dress. No need for formalities, Kichirou, Lady Citri spoke with a smile, sitting down as Lord Citri added. Of course, we are friends after all, Kichirou nodded in response, relaxing slightly at the friendly tone and knowing he hadn't done anything wrong that could threaten the alliance between their clans. Tsubaki took a similar position to Lucy of standing behind their king after making sure that everyone had a drink in hand as they all made small talk. The reason that I asked for this meeting is about something that Sona brought to my attention before your mission, Lord Citri spoke, Kichirou nodding slowly even as Sona's face started to redden as her father continued. I must say I was happy to hear that she found someone who could best her. Citri, I don't see how my recent win in chess against Sona could cause a reason to meet about our clan alliance, Kichirou replied carefully, Lord Citri lifting an eyebrow as he looked between him and Sona before asking the brunette. Are you not aware of the stipulation that Sona made in regards to any marriage contract? I knew there was one, which was why the former arrangement didn't work out, but not what it was, Kichirou answered, leaving the question of what the stipulation was out. Lady Citri sharing a look with Sona even as Tsubaki and Lucy shared a small amused look before Sona explained. The stipulation was I'd only marry someone who could defeat me in a game of chess. What? So you mean? Kichirou spoke surprised, his face reddening while Lord Citri looking amused as he nodded and answered. I want to make a marriage contract between Sona and you, Count Bifrons. Kichirou gulped at his clan's title being used instead of the normal lord, taking a moment to gather his thoughts before responding. That would mean that you wouldn't have an heir for the Citri clan unless. A quick glance to Lady Citri was all Kichirou did before Ajuka answered. Line continuation contract. Kichirou understood that a line continuation contract would mean that Sona would be like a second wife to him, adding his surname to her own while any children they had would be Citri heiresses first and Bifrons second. The downside for her would be she would have to share with whoever became his first wife, and she would have less influence on the Bifrons clan business. On Kichirou's side, most of it would be in regards to gaining respect from other clans, as the rank of count that the Bifrons clan held was second lowest compared to prince that the Citri clan had. The attention might be so great he could increase the rank of the Bifrons clan due to the alliances he already had with the Duke-ranked Gremory, Prince-ranked Citri, and Duke-ranked Astaroth, especially as each had produced a Mao and also knew about Kichirou's fallen angel side. Also, Kichirou wouldn't have much influence over the Citri clan businesses, even though he could be considered as Lord Citri if the current one chose to pass along the title. Aren't you worried about that coming out? Kichirou asked, meaning his fallen angel side, which would cause trouble to both clans if they came out and would probably pass on to any children that he and Sona had. Not really, Lord Citri replied plainly before his wife added. Your fallen angel side wouldn't be anything detrimental to children, just that we would have to be a bit more cautious to avoid it being known. Alright, what are the terms? Kichirou asked with a hint of nervousness in his voice, Lord Citri smiling even as Sona's face reddened as he answered. You wouldn't marry till after Sona finishes Kuoh Academy at the earliest. And of course any children will be Citri heiresses, but there is no provisions or time limits for that part. Kichirou nodded in understanding at that as Lady Citri spoke up. Not a term, but I would like for you to let Sona help in regards to looking for a first wife, as it might make matters easier to find someone who she would be able to get along with. Of course, Lady Citri. Kichirou replied, Sona relaxing slightly where she sat before Ajuka asked. Why don't we let Kichi and Sona talk amongst themselves while we finalize the rest of the details? Yes, that sounds like a good idea. Lord Citri replied after seeing his wife nod, Kichirou, Sona, Tsubaki and Lucy quietly leaving his room as the adults started to go into details. So, you had a good idea that this would happen? Kichirou asked as they stood in the hallway, Sona nodding as she replied. You did fulfill the one requirement I had, and this would make things better for the Bifrons clan. So, I guess those games we played as kids with Rias are one step closer to being reality, Kichirou mused with an embarrassed chuckle, Lucy and Tsubaki looking amused as Sona flushed as she retort. Well, it's normal for children to pretend to be married when they are young. Even if it's two girls sharing a husband? Kichirou asked with an amused look as Sona's face turned darker. She took a moment to calm down before she asked. Any news about Ria's situation? Not really. She's just getting more worried about it, but I think I managed to calm her down enough to avoid. accidentally breaching it and causing more trouble? Kichirou answered, Sona nodding relieved as she replied. Thank you. I don't like the idea of her being forced to marry anyone let alone Riser, but she had ideas for plans that could have made things worse. I just hope that Lucifer-sama is doing something to help her. I hope so too. Kichirou replied softly, resting a hand on Sona's shoulder reassuringly and getting a slight smile from her. They chatted for 10 more minutes on various other topics before a call drew all of their attention. Sona, Kian, Wani-sama? Levi-sama? Sona and Kichirou spoke embarrassed before they were swept up in a hug by Serafal, who continued speaking happily. I only just got the note about the meeting. Oh, I so happy that my Sotan is going to marry my Kitan. Oh, nice to see some of my ways have passed on Kichikuin. Kisuk spoke amused, holding a fan up before his face as everyone jumped and turned to the suddenly appearing man. Urahara-sensei? Lucy spoke surprised, even as Kichirou's face reddened as Serafal smiled as she squeezed the brunette happily as Sona asked. Wani-sama, please let us go. Leave this. Need air, Kichirou gasped out, Serafal letting go with a disappointed pout as asked. Yura-tan, what has brought you here? I've brought the swords Kichikuin asked for and Hyarinmur, Urahara answered, Sona nodding in understanding as Kichirou explained to Serafal. My 2 new pawns are swordswomen and need swords for when they need to fight. Hyarinmuru was found in the Bifrons Manor ruins. He was interrupted by Ajuka opening the door, smiling at seeing the group as he spoke. Hello Serafal, Kisuk. Looks like you two are getting along, Kichikuin, Sona. We're just about ready to get the contract signed. Kichirou and Sona blushed at hearing that, darkening as they caught the gaze of the other as the group headed back inside. We've decided that there isn't any other changes that will be put into the contract, so all that is left is to have it drawn up and signed. Then, Lord Citri spoke with a smile as seeing Kichirou and Sona's fading blushes, his wife and Ajuka smiling as Serafal squealed happily as she hugged both Kichirou and Sona. I can't wait to have you as my little brother, King. Wani-sama, please stop embarrassing us, Sona groaned, Kichirou soon to add breathlessly. Leave-sama, I'm having trouble breathing. The others laughed at the trio as Serafal loosened her hold on Kichirou and looked at him with a dangerous glint as she retort. One-eaten. What? Kichirou asked unusual, Sona's eyes widening nervously as Serafal grinned and added. You're my little brother now, so call me One-eaten. They haven't signed the contract yet, Levi-sama, Lucy pointed out, biting her lip to stop laughing as Sona and Kichirou shot glares at her even as Serafal dragged them towards the table that had the contract laid out on it to get them to sign it. Kichirou sighed in relief once the Citri family had left, trying to stop his eyes spinning in their sockets at the twirling hug Serafal had given him when he signed the contract. Always amusing to be around you, Kichikun, Kisuk spoke amused, face hidden by his fan as Ajuka chuckled for a few moments before the former remembered why he had come. Ah yes. Kisuk started, putting his fan away before pulling out a katana from his pocket dimension and holding it out to Kichirou as he continued. Here's Hyarinmuru. Hyarinmuru was a long katana, 1.4 meters long if Kichirou recalled, with a bronze-colored 4-pointed star as a guard, the hilt a light blue while the sheath was a dark blue. Thank you, Kichirou spoke as he accepted the katana, before taking a look over it as Kisuk replied. Don't worry, it helped with making your girl's swords as well. Looking up from the blade, Kichirou blinked in surprise as he saw the 2 others he was now holding. Both katanas were identical in appearance, snow-white 6-pointed snowflake-shaped guards with icy blue hilts and white sheaths. They only have to push their magic into them to synchronize one of the swords to them, and that will make it so they can summon the sword when they need without worry. Also, they can repair themselves by just feeding off the user's magic and, well, a few other surprises that they'll find out when they are ready. Kisuk added with a mysterious smile, Kichirou nodding as he accepting them and stored the 3 swords in his pocket dimension as Lucy spoke. They'll be happy to hear about, won't they, Kichi-sama? Yeah. If they repair themselves and can be summoned from wherever, they won't have to worry much losing or breaking them. Kichirou replied with a smile as Kisuk retorted. Glad you like them, you should be getting back to your peerage though, shouldn't you? Go on, I'll let you know if anything come up. Ajuka added, Kichirou nodding in response as Lucy prepared the magic circle under the pair. Kichirou took a moment to make sure he had everything before giving Lucy a nod to activate the magic circle after they said their goodbyes. "These are amazing," Murayama spoke in awe as she looked at the katana she and Keitase now held, the pinkette holding hers almost reverently after Kichirou had finished explaining what he knew the two swords could do. Keitase came to her senses a moment later and glomped the brunette, thanking him profusely and only looking up from where her head was buried in his shoulder as he spoke. "It's all right. I want you both to be able to defend yourselves when need, and I'm sure you'll both make me proud." Keitase and Murayama both blushed at that, nodding together before the former moved back to her seat embarrassed at seeing the smiles from her fellow peerage members. "How did their training go?" Kichirou asked as he looked to Peerage, her warm smile growing as she answered. "They both have admirable skill with a sword and have excellent teamwork together. I imagine that they would become much better once they become accustomed to their swords and gain experience." Kichirou smiled brightly at that, nodding impressed as he replied, "That's great." Taking a moment to look around the room, Kichirou was glad for the spare meeting room for just his peerage as he coughed into his hand before continuing. "Now, I know you're all curious about the meeting with Lord Citri, and I feel you deserve to know, seeing as it will affect your futures as well. The meeting today was to create a marriage contract between myself and Sona. Now, Keitase, Murayama, married devils have the ability to order around their partner's peerage, which is how this affects you all, as once it happens Sona will be able to take charge if the need arises." Keitase and Murayama looked surprised while Cassie, Lucy, Peerage and Lena Lee nodded but looked happy as Lena Lee spoke up. "It's good that Kaicho is one of your childhood friends then." Kichirou nodded in response as he continued. "Now, because Sona doesn't have any younger siblings, the contract was a line continuation one, which means that she'll still be the head of the Citri clan even after we marry, and so I'll have to find another wife who meets her approval." "That's good. Kaicho is a good judge of character," Peerage spoke with a nod, getting nods of agreement from the others before Kichirou spoke. "Well, that's all at the moment, so you're free for the rest of the day till contracts this evening." With that, the group broke up, Kichirou silently sighing in relief at how accepting they are about the sudden change. The next day found the group sitting in the clubroom after school. "Ouch," Issei hummed, getting glared at by Kaneko and the girls of Kichirou's peerage while Asia was healing his bruised face. "Are you okay?" Asia asked, concerned, before Kaneko muttered from where she sat on the sofa. "You reap what you sow." "Yeah, you deserve getting beaten if you're trying to perv on girls." Keitase spoke annoyed, her hand twitching towards the wooden sword she had in her bag. "Geez. Why are you so?" Rias spoke with a sigh on astonishment, Kichirou shaking his head as Akino added while pouring Issei some tea. You have to keep the level of peeping at girls changing at a moderate level." "I got too carried away." Issei replied with a sigh, Yuto smiling as he spoke. "I will show you any time when I'm getting changed." "Sure up. How can I enjoy looking at a guy getting changed? I can't even enjoy looking at a girl with an undeveloped body." Issei rebuked instantly, Kichirou stifling his laughter as he caught Yuto's amused look before Kaneko muttered as she glared. "Undeveloped?" Kichirou tapped his chin in thought, a teasing gleam in his eye as he asked, "You really shouldn't do that sort of thing unless, Issei, are you by chance?" "What? No way!" Issei shouted in response as he jumped up, Akino looking amused as Kichirou caught Peerage's gaze as she spoke. "It's perfectly all right to enjoy being beaten up, Hyodo-kun. And it makes sense that is why your peeping ways always get you caught." "That makes so much sense." Keitase and Murayama spoke together thoughtfully, Lucy, Cassie and Lena Lee nodding knowingly while managing to smother their laughter and smiles. Asia looked adorably confused by the whole situation while Rias was smirking amused and Kaneko had a small smirk. "I am not amsisti," Issei shouted, shooting a glare at Kichirou who was sipping his tea calmly with innocent eyes as Rias spoke. Now, let's get on to the reason that we're gathered here today. Issei, Asia, your time delivering leaflets has ended and now we'll be going to get you both familiars." "A familiar?" Issei asked suspiciously, Rias nodding as she replied. "Yes, a familiar. You and Asia, Keitase and Murayama still don't have one. A familiar is an existence which becomes the hand and foot of us devils. They become handy for the devil's job and normally take over for handing out leaflets. Of course they have other abilities that may be useful to us. Kichirou explained to the others before giving an apologetic look to Keitase and Murayama as he continued. I'm afraid we won't be going as only one peerage are able to go at a time due to the lack of guides the familiar forest has given some of the dangerous creatures there. Keitase and Murayama nodded in understanding before Rias smiled as she got her red bat to appear on her hand as she spoke. This is my familiar. And this is mine, Hedwig. Kichirou added, signaling to the regal, gold-eyed, snowy owl that was now sitting on his shoulder. This one here is mine. Akino spoke as she summoned a small oni, Lucy not going to be beat as she spoke. This is Plu. In her arms was a white-like dog with a orange drill-shaped nose. This is Shiro. Kaneko spoke while hugging a white kitten, Lena Lee stroking the elegant swan on her shoulder as she spoke. This is Keiho. Cassie was petting a small blackbird that was on her shoulder, and Pyrrha had a yellow-looking mouse with a lightning bolt-shaped tail as the former spoke first. This is Artie. And this is Ash, Pyrrha added as she petted the yellow mouse. Mine is... Kiba started, a small bird on his shoulder as well only for Issei to butt in. You don't have to tell me. You are so cold. Kiba retorted with a bitter smile, Rias' bat moving to fly over Issei as she was about to speak only for a knock on the door drawing their attention, which opened to admit Sona and the student council into the room. What are you doing here, Sona? Rias asked curiously as Sona moved to take a seat next to Kichirou as she answered. Well, seeing as we have new members, I figured it was time for introductions. Issei and Asia looked on confused while Keitase and Murayama were taking in those there and thankful that Kichirou had already explained about Sona and the student council. Oh, so you didn't mention us to your new servants, Rias-senpai? Genshur Suji spoke with a smirk, changing into a frown as his gaze shifting to Kichirou and Sona sitting next to each other. Saji, it can't be helped because we are not supposed to contact each other at normal times. Also, it hasn't been that long since he became a devil. Hyodo-kun is responding like he's supposed to. Where is this Bifrons-sama? Se asked as he looked around, his eyes lingering over the girls as Kichirou frowned and stood up. I guess introductions need to be made then. I am Tendo Kichirou at this school, but my real name is Kichirou Bifrons, Lord of the Bifrons clan. And Issei, this is Sona Citri, alias Shirtorai Sauna. She's a top-class devil who is the next heir of the House of Citri. Saji spoke shocked as he looked at Kichirou, Issei doing a similar thing to Sona as Akino explained to him about the pillars. So you're the one who's forcing Kaicho to marry. I challenge you to a fight, winner gets Kaicho. Saji. Sona started stopping Saji from digging himself deeper into possible trouble as she continued. The reason we came here was to do introduction as well as arranging who would be going to the familiar forest. Do not make a shame out of me, besides we both agreed to it and he has already passed my own condition for becoming my husband. Everyone of Rias' peerage, including Rias herself, and Sona's peerage froze at that while Kichirou looking away embarrassed at not having told Rias about the contract. Sorry Kaicho. Saji stammered out, Kichirou seeing Rias with schooled features as she spoke in a cool tone. Congratulations, Sona. Thank you, Rias. Sona replied with a short nod, Kichirou nervously shifting where he sat before he spoke up. So you're intending to go to the familiar forest as well, Sona? Yes, I was. Sona answered, Rias' eyes sharpening as she asked. So how are we going to settle this, Sona? Kichirou sighed in relief as he looked at the quartet of Rias, Sona, Akino and Tsubaki, their rackets broken from the magically enhanced game of tennis they had been playing to decide who would go to the familiar forest. You four should be more careful with using magic around humans, Kichirou grumbled as he shot annoyed looks at them, noting the embarrassed looks they had as he continued. Seeing as neither of you won, we should probably pick another sport and make sure it's away from everyone else because it seems you can't stop using magic during it. It'll be tonight in the gym, me and my peerage will be referees, so no funny business, alright? Yes, Kichi. Sona and Rias spoke together shamefaced, Akino muffling a smile while Tsubaki hid a smirk at seeing their kings get chastised by the brunette. Kichirou glanced to see Lucy and his peerage smiling amused before going to explain to them what was going to happen later on. Their peerages were soon left to do their own things, leaving the three kings to be sitting in the ORC clubroom as Rias asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" "We only found out and signed it yesterday, Rias. And with your situation we didn't want to make it seem like I was rubbing it in," Sona explained, Kichirou nodding in agreement as he added, "I wasn't sure how to bring it up either." "So you'll be Lady Bifrons then? Your parents must be happy to have another child," Rias asked with a sad smile, only to be surprised as Sona shook her head and answered, "No. I'm still the heiress of Citri, Rias, and will be Lady Citri when we marry because of the line continuation contract. I just have more control over who will be Lady Bifrons, seeing as I will have to share Kichi with them." Rias looked to Kichirou to see him nod in agreement before she murmured softly to herself, "I still have a chance then." Kichirou blushed as Sona nodded and quietly agreed. "Of course, we just need to get you out of that first." Lord Gremory sat in his office, deep in thought as he looked over the contract proposal that Surzex had brought to him for Kichirou and Rias along with the former's results from the Super Devil tests. He would admit that he always wanted strong children and that had been the main reason for the marriage contract with the Phoenix clan, but now with this and already knowing about Kichirou's true heritage brought it into question. Riser's only advantage now is his regeneration ability, but Kichi has his Nephilim Super Devil combination. Lord Gremory pondered, knowing that Kichirou's fallen angel side was only known amongst few people in the Gremory, Citri and Astaroth clans and the Mao. Still trying to decide what to do with what Surzex brought you, the voice of his wife broke his thoughts as he nodded to her as he explained. "We both know that Kichi has the potential to become stronger than Riser due to being a super devil, his fallen angel and sacred gear, but you don't believe that others would accept it now without them knowing about Kichirou-kun's true heritage coming to light." Venelana continued, getting a nod from her husband as she thought for a moment before asking, "Why do you not let them both participate in a rating game to see who is stronger?" Lord Gremory hummed thoughtfully at the appealing idea, not noticing that Venelana was smiling tightly at her own idea, which would turn Rias into a prize between Kichirou and Riser. Not that Riser doesn't appear to think of her in any different way to that. Venelana mentally chided herself before seeing her husband nodding slowly as he spoke. "That's a great idea." Kichirou stood in the gym with his peerage around him, all dressed in their gym uniforms, as he explained to Rias, Sona and their peerages what would be going on while holding a dodgeball. "To decide who is going to the familiar forest, you are all going to be playing a game of dodgeball. Now to make things fairer, 2 of Sona's peerage will not take part and my peerage will be acting as referees." Kichirou took a moment to smile at the calculating look on Sona's face as he added, "And because we won't be noticed by the humans, anything goes, but damaging the school property may result in forfeits which will be added to fixing any damage caused." Both female kings nodded in agreements, Kichirou unaware of the admiring looks he was getting from Keitase and Murayama, who were standing behind him with the rest of his peerage as he finished. "Now you all have 10 minutes to warm up for it, and then we'll start." With that, the 2 peerages headed off to their separate sides to the gym to warm up and have their team talks, Kichirou turning to find his peerage already waiting to start the game as Peerage spoke up, "This will be interesting to see who wins. Guess we better warm up so we can keep track on anything." Lena Lee spoke with a smile, Lucy and Cassie nodding as they shared a challenging look at the other before they both spoke up. "Kichi-sama, will you help me stretch?" Kichirou rolled his eyes in amusement before replying at seeing Peerage and Lena Lee giving him asking looks while Keitase and Murayama both had blushes. "Alright, but it will have to be quick. I don't think Rias and Sona have realized that tonight is the full moon." The dodgeball match had been brutal to watch, Issei and Saji both taking ball to their groins. Rei Kusaka and Tomo Meguri had both lost good chunks of their clothes due to Rias and Akino's magic-powered dodgeballs. Kiba had been hit in the face by a dodgeball from Tsubasa Yura before taking 2 from Rias and Akino, and Tsubaki taking a hit from the duo for Sona, meaning that Rias had won when time had ran out. "It's a shame I lost. I guess it will have to wait till the next month." Sona spoke to herself, Kichirou blinking as he turned his attention to his fiancée who was next to him from where Asia and Lucy was trying to heal the injured members of Rias and Sona's peerages as he replied. "Oh, I know it's not really a consolation, but how about we go out another night?" Sona glanced at him with a light blush forming as she asked. "Like a date?" "Why yeah, I guess so." Kichirou replied, his own cheeks reddening as he nodded. The girls of Kichirou's peerage sharing smiles at hearing that, Keitace and Murayama looking slightly jealous at hearing it, as did Rias, who had her lips pressed in a fine line, before recalling what Sona and Kichirou had said earlier in the day. Don't you have to go to the familiar forest, Riasama?" Peerage asked with an amused look at Rias' sudden look of panic before her group hurried to leave. Kichirou stifling his chuckle as Sona's eyes twinkled with amusement as she spoke. "I would love to. We can sort out the details tomorrow." "All right." Kichirou replied with a nod, not noticing Lucy behind him till she spoke up. "We do have a stray to deal with tonight, Kichi-sama." Kichirou jumped in shock, turning on the smiling blonde as he shot her a short glare before nodding as he replied, "I remember, Lucy-chan. You girls had better get ready for it. Don't want any of you getting hurt because of being unprepared." With that, his peerage gave nods before moving to leave so they could get ready, Kichirou turning to Sona as he added, "I'll see you tomorrow then." "See you, Kichi," Sona replied. Kichirou moving to leave as well as she turned to check on her peerage. Kichirou and his peerage appeared at the entrance at the docks from the magic circle, everyone having changed back into their school uniform. Peerage had her shape-changeable spear, Milo, and her hoplon shield, a Kuoh, in her hands, while Cassie had her pair of arm-mounted blades, falchion, on her arms already. Keitace and Murayama had their katana sheathed on their hip with a wide brown belt they had been given. "Kaisen, Murayama-sen, make sure you stay with me. You can just watch as it'll be some time to adjust to seeing strays, and I don't want you two to even help with a stray till you feel ready." Kichirou spoke, getting curious and caring looks from the two kendo girls as he explained. When stray devils leave their masters and become mad off their power, they mutate and lose what's left of their humanity, changing into monstrous beings that are a danger to humans. Destroying them and stopping devils being found out is a less common job for us, but sometimes we are asked to do it. The two girls shivered slightly, Kichirou giving them sympathetic looks before he glanced to Peerage as he added, "All three of you have permission to use promotion if you need to." The group started to walk forwards, Lena Lee and Cassie taking the lead as Lucy started to detail who they were after. "The stray devil is from the Amon clan, his name is Francis and was a rook, so expect him to be super strong and tough to injure. His skill in magic is appalling and he was just a tank-style fighter. Grafia-sama said that he was detected in this area, so keep on guard." "Right." Kichirou started, taking a moment to think before continuing. "Cassie-chan, Lena Lee-chan, I want you two to scout out the area. Find him and then report back and try and avoid being seen." Cassie and Lena Lee nodded before both disappeared in a burst of speed before Kichirou turned to Lucy as he added, "We'll probably need Virgo's power here." "All right." Lucy spoke, taking a few steps forwards before focusing as she spoke. "Star dress, Virgo." A gold-colored magic circle formed under her, the star sign for Virgo set in the center of it. The circle flashed for a moment, changing Lucy's clothes to the sleeveless black and white maid outfit with dead-acted sleeves, thigh-high white stockings, black flat shoes and a shirt collar around her neck. Virgo's symbol appearing on her right shoulder while a frilled headband rested on her head and her hair was styled in two low ponytails by black ribbons at the back. Keitace and Murayama gaped in surprise as the light faded, trying to take in Lucy's new appearance as Kichirou turned to Peerage as he spoke, "Pichin, you and Lucy-chan will take the lead. Let's try and trap this stray." "Right?" Peerage spoke as Lucy nodded, the group starting to walk forwards as Keitace asked shocked, "That's your magic?" Star dress lets me take on the powers of one of the celestial spirits I've made a contract with. Virgo lets me use earth magic better." Lucy explained as they walked before Murayama asked, "Isn't that embarrassing though, I mean being dressed like that?" "Not really." Lucy started with a shrug, wrapping an arm around Kichirou's as she added, "Especially with Kichi-sama here to enjoy and protect me." Keitase and Murayama nodded in understanding, cheeks reddening slightly as they noticed Peerage's smile and Kichirou's cheeks gain a dusting of pink. Lena Lee soon reappeared before them and said, "We found him. Cassie is staying there to make sure he doesn't get away." "Lead the way," Lena Lee and Kichirou spoke, letting Lena Lee lead the way so they arrived at a damaged warehouse where Cassie stood outside. "Good job you two." Kichirou spoke with smile, turning to the others as he voiced the next part just for Katie and Murayama's benefit. "We'll do this like normal. Give him a chance to go back and face his punishment in the underworld, and if he refuses we eliminate him so he can't hurt anyone else." The serious nods from his peerage told him that Keitase and Murayama understood that this would get dangerous and violent easily if the stray didn't go back. They headed inside of the warehouse, Kichirou at the lead with Lucy and Lena Lee on either side of him as the brunette called, "Stray Devil Francis, we know you are here, so come out now." The sounds of chittering filled the air before a giant scorpion stepped out of the shadows, the upper half body of the stray devil at the front with his arms ending in large claws while a bulky tail was aimed at them as Frantic spoke, "You think you can send me back to them? I refuse to go back to that cowardly scum. Is that your final choice on the matter?" Kichirou asked, his face turning seriously as he glanced over to Lucy and Lena Lee as Francis answered with a hiss. "Yes." A blast of venom shot from the tail and Kichirou and Lucy instantly reacted, the former creating a magic barrier while the latter created a wall of rock to take the hit. Once the blast of venom ended, Kichirou nodded to Lena Lee as he and Lucy removed their defense. "Dark boots," Lena Lee called, black boots appearing on her legs with a glowing green line running up the sides of them and over her thighs as her sacred gear. Activated as Kichirou spoke to Peerage. "Try and take out the tail." "Promotion, Bishop," Peerage replied, the change instantly happening as she dropped to one knee stance as she changed Milo into its rifle form. Cassie and Lena Lee charged forwards to act as a distraction, Lucy only a few steps behind as she readied her celestial spirit-enhanced earth magic. A bolt of red lightning shot from the rifle and hit into the tail, forcing it back from firing off another stream of venom as it brought its claws down at Cassie and Lena Lee. "Waltz, mist wind," Lena Lee shouted as she fired a tornado of wind with a kick towards Francis, making the stray devil having to use its claws to block instead as he stumbled a step back before the ground caved in under one of its scorpion legs as Lucy spoke. "Trap hole." Other holes opened up under the stray devil, capturing its other legs as a bolt of lightning from Peerage slammed into the human torso before Cassie appeared and swiped both her arm-mounted blades down to remove Francis' left arm at the shoulder. A blast of magic shot from Francis' mouth, making Kichirou create a giant ice flower to block it from passing him before Lena Lee and Peerage launched their elemental attacks again and forced Francis to protect himself again. Another trap hole by Lucy making Francis stumble before Cassie appeared above the tail, slashing down with wind-coated blades to cut off the stinger of the tail. "End it," Kichirou called, gathering a large spear made out of ice above his hand as Lucy made dozens of earth spikes shoot up to pierce its body. Cassie and Lena Lee appeared standing in front of Francis as Peerage's charged bolt of lightning slammed into Francis' body, soon followed by Kichirou's ice spear, a small amount of his super devil power contained inside it, turning the stray devil into a large ice statue. "Sonic Cutter," Cassie and Lena Lee called out together, swinging out with arm and leg respectively to unleash twin air slashes which cut through the ice statue and making it shatter to pieces. "Great job, girls," Kichirou called with a smile, glancing to see Keitase and Murayama looking on in amazement. Peerage and Cassie smiled pleased as they dismissed their weapons back to their pocket dimensions, Lena Lee deactivating her dark boots while Lucy ended her star dress, Virgo spell, and her clothes changed back. "Let's head home now, everyone." Kichirou spoke with a smile as he created a magic circle underneath him so they could go back to the clubroom. Kichirou smiled as stood just inside the student council room waiting for Sona. It had taken a couple of meetings after school to decide when or what they would do for their date. He changed out of his school uniform after school today into a pair of black skinny jeans, a icy blue long-sleeved shirt and a sleeveless hooded royal blue jacket with a pair of black and icy blue sneakers. Sona had gone off to her own private room to change as both had agreed that they shouldn't go on a date in their uniforms, and given the blush she had on her face, Tsubaki had been teasing her about the date. Still find it surprising how helpful the girls were. Kichirou thought, unaware that the senior members of his peerage were eager to get the brunette to take them onto dates now that he would be starting with Sona. Lucy had been happy to take charge of the peerage as well while he was on the date, only contacting him if something important happened. "I'm ready." Sona spoke nervously as she stepped out into the main room, Kichirou looking at her admiringly at the tight-fitting powder blue sundress she was wearing with a light violet jacket on top, white ankle socks and black low-heeled shoes. Over her right shoulder was a black stylish handbag. "You look amazing." Kichirou spoke with a soft smile, Sona blushing as she came to a stop before him, her eyes taking in her fiancé's appearance as she replied, "You look good too. Are you ready to go?" Kichirou held his hand out for her, Sona's smile and blush growing as she took hold of his hand before sending a sharp look to the giggling girls of her peerage as she added, "Tsubaki, you're in charge for now. Let me know if something serious happens." Tsubaki nodded with a small smile before Sona and Kichirou left the room and started to make their way out of the school. "So how has training gone since that stray devil? It must have been a surprise for them to see you all fight?" Sona asked curiously, Kichirou smiling softly as he replied, "I think it was a shock for them at how different strays are, but I've started to have them fight a few of my ice constructs, and they seem to be understanding the difference between them and human opponents." Sona nodded in understanding, remembering the time she had seen Kichirou create a pack of large ice wolves to distract a Cerberus that had came onto the Gremory Manor's garden when they were younger. "Dinner and a movie going to be alright? I just expected that a date would be more, well, special." Kichirou asked nervously, Sona rolling her eyes with a small smile as she replied, "It'll be fine. I have wanted to go see that movie for a while, Kichi, and it's nice to have a bit of a break from student council paperwork." The pair walked through the empty corridors of the school, glad to change the topics to more mundane things. The pair stepped out of the main building of the school before they felt the first flare of familiar demonic magic from the old school building. Kichirou and Sona sharing a look before the former spoke with a sigh, "What is that baka doing here?" "Must be something to do with Rias. Let's go." Sona replied, Kichirou nodding in gratitude and agreement as they hurriedly headed over to the building. "I will take you back to the underworld, even if I have to burn all of your and that short brat's servants." Those were the first words Kichirou heard as he opened the door to the ORC room, his eyes instantly narrowing on the flame-holding blonde-haired devil before a blast of freezing wind shot through the whole room and extinguished the flames Riser held as he spoke in a cold tone. "You won't lay a hand on any of them, Riser team." All of Rias and his own peerage looked at him along with Riser as Kichirou's eyes glowed with power as he walked into the room with Sona. Riser glared back at the brunette as he sneered, "And here is the little brat, always getting in my way." A crimson-red magic circle lit up the floor before Graphia appeared with a stern look on her face as she stepped from it between Kichirou and Riser as she spoke. With an ice-cold tone, "Riser-sama, you should not be here just because Lords Gremory and Phoenix wish to change the arrangement between you and Oju-sama." Rias' face perked up in interest at hearing that as Riser's scowl grew as he retort, "Rias is my fiancé. I haven't nothing to prove by beating this minor pillar brat in a raiding game." Kichirou let out a snort at hearing that, noting that his peerage looked offended at Riser's comment as Graphia spoke, "Lord Phoenix and Lord Gremory believe otherwise, especially with Lord Bifrons being a super devil and the greater potential being possible between him and Oju-sama to produce a strong children." Rias' face reddened at hearing that, although she looked happy at hearing the chance of being free from Riser as Graphia continued, "Due to this a raiding game will be played between yourself, Riser-sama, and Lord Bifrons with the winner proving they are most worthy of Oju-sama's hand in marriage." "Fine. You think you can handle my full peerage with those girls of yours?" Riser asked with a sneer, Kichirou relaxing slightly now that Graphia was here to keep the peace as he looked to the bright orange magic circle that had appeared behind the phoenix, it flashing once before a group of 15 young women appeared and looked around the room. Issei gaped at seeing the peerage of all women, Kichirou rolling his eyes as he countered, Don't presume just because you have more pieces than me means that you will win. My peerage has a lot of experience facing larger groups. Ravel Phoenix took the moment of silent glaring between the two male kings to look over Kichirou. She had heard a lot about the brunette even before her parents had brought up the possible chance of making a contract with them based on how he did in the rating game, and half of it she hadn't known until her mother had started to point out reasons. Raised by Ajuka Beelzebub and his peerage with help from Gremory, Citri and Aseroth clans, and even taught to fight by the same peerage, Graphia Lucifuge and Seraphal Leviathan due to his affinity for ice magic, tester for the upgraded set of evil pieces, youngest lord of a pillar clan in at least 3 centuries and a super devil, although he hadn't mastered those powers. Your group of 6 against my 15. Don't make me laugh. Those 2 new girls wouldn't even stand up against any of pawns. Riser spoke with a snort as Kichirou's peerage glared at them, Kates and Murayama the most angrily amongst them. Another magic circle appeared in the room, drawing everyone's attention as a young woman stepped out. She stood at 5'6" with long curly blonde hair that extends all the way down her back and dark blue eyes. Her remarkably large biaristis was accentuated by the long-sleeved white blouse she wore, a dark blue ribbon tied into a bow around the collar, with a black pencil skirt, thigh-high white socks and black slipper shoes. Liz. Riser spoke with a lecherous grin, not noticing his peerage sending Maihi sad or concerned looks, as the new blonde turned to Kichirou as he spoke with a slightly nervous smile. Hello Abaddon Elizabeth-san. It's nice to see you again. I have made my decision about your offer, Bifrons Kichirou. Elizabeth spoke as she walked towards the brunette, ignoring Riser's victorious crowing. Tell the little pipsqueak that you accepted a real man's offer. I wish to accept your offer to join your peerage as a bishop. Elizabeth spoke with a small smile, Kichirou smiling brightly in relief as Riser shouted in anger. What? Kichirou summoned one of his bishops, holding it up to lightly press against the middle of Elizabeth's chest as he spoke. I, Kichirou Bifrons, bid thee, Elizabeth Abaddon, to become my bishop. Elizabeth shuddered pleasantly as the evil piece sunk into her chest and the demonic energy infused in it washed over her body before she slumped forwards against her new master who caught her. Kichirou glanced to Graphia, seeing the happy gleam in her eye as he asked, When will this rating game be? 2 weeks. Graphia answered, Riser unable to contain his anger again as he snapped as he shouted. Don't ignore me, brat. She was supposed to be mine. Elizabeth shot a glare at Riser as he pointed his finger at her. Kichirou rolled his eyes as he scoffed. She's chosen me, Riser team, and I refuse to even think of trading her any of my peerage to anyone unless they wants it. Kichirou got looks of respect from his peerage, Sona and Rias and her peerage at hearing that. Riser's eyes gleaming with a dangerous edge as he smirked coldly as he spoke. Fine. We'll settle this in the rating game. The winner gets a member of the other's peerage, so when I beat you, I will be able to claim what is rightfully mine. Kichirou glanced back at his peerage for a moment only to be surprised by determined looks each girl's face, Elizabeth moving to join them as she nodded as well to him, before he turned back to Riser and replied, All right, just be prepared to accept losing one of your peerage to me. Riser smirked darkly at hearing that, turning to walk towards his peerage as a large magic circle appeared under the group as he retort, Well, you better enjoy having Liz before I take her from you. With that, Riser's peerage teleported out through the magic circle, Kichirou waiting till they were gone before he relaxed and offered a reassuring smile to his peerage as he spoke, Looks like we've got some training to do starting tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll sort things out. Go enjoy your date with Sona today. Lucy spoke with a smile, Graphia looking amused as Sona and Kichirou glanced to each other with a light blush before the latter answered. Alright, can you help get Elizabeth-san settled in as well? Lucy and Rias nodded in response as they both smiled amused as Sona and Kichirou gave their thanks before leaving.